believe it would be constitutional for the government to target and kill any U.S. citizen with a drone or with a shotgun without due process.
Due process is one of those terms that is commonly heard, but not so commonly understood. Due process actually has two different meanings. The term can refer to procedural due process or substantive due process. Procedural due process refers to the steps that the government must follow before it takes away a person's freedom or property. At a minimum, the government must provide a person with notice and with an opportunity to be heard before taking away property or imprisoning someone. Substantive due process can be harder to define. Simply put, substantive due process refers to fundamental rights that are so important to individual liberty that the government cannot enact laws to restrict them absent a compelling reason. These rights to include the right to privacy, the right to get married, the right to raise your children, and the right to work. Both procedural due process and substantive due process are important protections from our freedom. Government violations of either type of due process are serious and may entitle you to damages.
In December of 1911, Fremont Weeks was arrested by a police officer in Kansas City, Missouri, where he was employed by an express company. Other officers entered the house without a search warrant and took possession of papers and articles which were then turned over to use against him in court. Officers returned later that day with the U.S. Marshal. Still without warrant, these officers seized letters and envelopes that they found in a desk. These papers were then used to convict Weeks of transporting lottery tickets. Weeks petitioned the police officers to return his private possessions. The question that this case poses is, did the search and seizure of Weeks' homes violate the Fourth Amendment? The Fourth Amendment states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, in particular describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Weeks argued that seeing as the officers did not have any warrant to search his house, that they were unlawfully searching and seizing his possessions and that they should be returned to him and not be used against him in court. In a unanimous decision, the court held that the seizures of items in Weeks' residence directly violated his constitutional rights. If the court allowed for the private documents to be seized and then held as evidence against citizens, it would have meant that the protection of the Fourth Amendment, declaring the right to be secure against such searches and seizures with unlawful or lack of warrant, would be of no value. It was in this case where we see the first application of what eventually would become known as the exclusionary rule. The exclusionary rule prevents the government from using most evidence gathered in violation of the United States Constitution. In the end, Justice Day, who wrote up the majority opinion, says, "It results that the judgment of the court below must be reversed, and that the case remanded for further proceedings in accordance with this opinion." Therefore, the decision in the lower courts that the officers were acting in accordance to the Fourth Amendment was reversed, making the act of searching and seizing Weeks' house unlawful and unconstitutional.